YouTube as well. Hi everybody, this is Paul Lathrop. I am the Deputy Director of New Media for the Second Amendment Foundation. What you're seeing is the first edition of the Weekly Bullet, a news show, a 1-hour news show that we're going to be doing live every Friday afternoon. We're going to go ahead and get started, starting to introduce people. To my immediate right, if you're watching, is Kevin Creighton. He is a blogger at ammoman.com. I've known Kevin for a very long time. Great blogger and great stuff up at the Ammo Man blog. Below me is Rob Morse. Rob is the person behind the Slow Facts blog on WordPress. Also one of my co-hosts when I do the Polite Society podcast. And joining us as a guest on the bottom right is Alan Gottlieb. Alan is my boss. He is he's the founder and executive vice president, I believe is your title, Alan, of the
Right, you got it right.
Foundation. Very cool. So let's go ahead and get started. And Alan, I want to lead off with, this has been a week, actually 2 weeks, for the Second Amendment Foundation. It seems like every day I'm getting notifications another lawsuit hits. There's one that's the one I want to talk about the most is the one that you and Defense Distributed have against the State Department and the state of New Jersey. But there's also been a Louisiana lawsuit for 18 to 21 year olds not being able to purchase firearms. And it seems like every day I'm getting another lawsuit that's been filed. Could I start off with if you would please start off with that Defense Distributed lawsuit? What's behind that one, and where is it filed at?
We're filed in federal court in Texas, in the Fifth Circuit, and for the viewers and listeners right now, Defense Distributed is the company that developed the 3D printed handgun and 3D printed gun parts, and the federal government basically tried to shut them down. That the plans that were being given out on the internet for information about how to make firearms was not legal under ITAR, a federal regulation that regulates technology that might go to foreign countries or terrorists, that has any defense capabilities to it, and arms fall under that. And eventually the federal government realized that they were going to lose on a court case that we had filed with Defense Distributed on First Amendment grounds, and signed in a consent agreement to allow us to upload and download files so that we could share the computer files with people about firearms, share information. And then what happened is a bunch of states went and filed suit against the federal government, saying that they shouldn't allow these people access to information about dangerous weapons. And then the State Department sort of welched on their agreement that they had signed with Defense Distributed and the Second Amendment Foundation in a previous court case. And so now and one of the attorney generals who were responsible for a lot of that was the Attorney General in New Jersey. And so we went back to federal court now to have the courts make the federal government capitulate and give us what they agreed to in writing, that they've sort of walked back a bit, so that we don't get arrested for sharing computer files about firearms on the internet. And so it's a very interesting suit, and I'm sure we're going to win it over time. And so it's against the Attorney General of New Jersey for threatening the federal government, forcing them to basically capitulate in an agreement that they signed with us. And this is the future. The concept of being able to make your own firearm in your own home goes back fundamentally to the days of our founding of our republic and before that. And so we're trying to make sure that people have the right to make their own firearms.
Very cool. So if I could then, how many in the last 2 weeks? I got to say there's probably been 5 or 6 lawsuits filed by SAF. Am I right on that?
Somewhere around there. I'm losing track. All I know is that our our director of operations told me yesterday that since January 1, the foundation now has filed 23 lawsuits in federal, mostly federal court, a few in state court, to protect the right to keep and bear arms across the country. And that we have a 24th suit ready to be filed any minute, practically, but I can't talk about it until it is filed. But in the last couple of weeks, let me see if I can track this back down. We had Pennsylvania, where we filed suit against their refusal to allow 18 to 28-year-old young adults to be able to purchase firearms. We filed in New York City against the crazy requirements and lack of issuing permits to carry concealed firearms in New York City. We filed a similar suit against the state of New Jersey for their ridiculous law that doesn't allow people to get permits to carry firearms for self-protection in the state of New Jersey. We filed an 18 to 20-year-old one in Louisiana as well, so that 18 to 20-year-olds, this is against the federal government we filed this suit with against in the Fifth Circuit. And part of our logic, Paul, with all this is that we're trying to load up the courts right now because eventually these cases have to get to the Supreme Court for us to win, mainly because a lot of the circuit court appeals courts have ruled against us on similar type suits in the past. So we're reloading everything up now that we have a new sixth justice who we think supports gun rights on the U.S. Supreme Court. We want to give the court, the opportunity now to rectify some of the lower court decisions that have been wrong and hurt Second Amendment rights. And expand, our Second Amendment freedoms in our country. So that's why we're filing so many of these right now, and there's a whole bunch more on the drawing board. So you're going to see 3 or 4 more filed before the end of the year, I think, and then another big one filed in January because it doesn't new law in one state that I can't really talk about yet doesn't take effect until the first of the year. So we have a whole bunch more in progress that are going to be filed. It's really exciting times for us on our legal stuff at the Second Amendment Foundation, because who would have ever thought we would have filed 23 lawsuits, 24 coming up, all in one calendar year alone.
Mm-hmm. If I'm remembering correctly, and because of my new job, I've been watching the filings a lot more closely than I used to. But if I remember right, in one story, the strategy has been that you file in cases that may already have been decided in one form or another, and basically said, look, you've ruled against us before. You want to just rule against us quickly so we can move on? Am I getting that right?
You're getting that right. In fact, in every one of these recent suits that we've filed, we've stated in the suit that we know precedent, in your jurisdiction is against us. So please rule against us as fast as you can, basically, so we can move this on up and get this issue resolved. Now that we have a chance to really get these resolved, so it's really exciting times for us. These cases should move rather quickly, and we're probably going to get some judges saying, I think I really agree with you, but unfortunately I can't rule in your favor because my appeals court above me have ruled in a similar case, saying that you don't have these Second Amendment doesn't apply to these rights, so I can't really rule in your favor. So I'll rule quickly against you, and go ahead and good luck.
Very cool. Well, I'm going to go ahead and open this up to my compadres here. Kevin, Rob, do you guys have any questions for Alan?
Many. Kevin, I'll share, though. Kevin, you want to go first, or should I jump in? All right. Alan, this is a brand new ball game compared to the court you faced 6 months ago. In theory, this is a non-lawyer. In theory, a few of these cases being accepted and decided, and the basis of the decision becoming a matter of public record, being entered into our legal landscape, should make not only those cases monumental, but further cases. The courts haven't picked up and told the Supreme Court hasn't told the lower courts how to operate in a Second Amendment case with but 1 or 2 decisions per decade. This could be groundbreaking, earth-shattering. I can't overestimate the issues at play here. Am I reading that correctly?
Well, I sure hope so, and I think you are, and that's why we're pursuing this course of legal actions. There's no doubt that since the Heller and McDonald decisions from the U.S. Supreme Court, a lot of the lower courts have thumbed their nose at those decisions and basically said, well, since this case is slightly different and that case was ruled on a different issue per se, the Second Amendment rights aren't going to extend to anything else until, quote unquote, the Supreme Court tells us we have to. And so that's why we're doing this. We're going to tell the lower courts they have to abide by the Heller and McDonald decisions. We need to give this U.S. Supreme Court the opportunity to be able to tell them they have to. So we're kind of excited about it. Just background, when we won, the Second Amendment Foundation won the McDonald decision at the U.S. Supreme Court, our opponents argued to the Supreme Court that they should rule against us because if they ruled in our favor, it was going to open up a floodgate of lawsuits challenging gun laws. Well, they were right about that. But the only thing I can agree with our opponents on, and now we're just 23 alone in this 1 year, we have, I think, over 40 cases that are still in the courts, moving on up right now from previous suits as well. So the litigation is like, there aren't many major law firms that have 40 suits in court at the same time, and the Second Amendment Foundation does.
But again, my question, if a few of these are decided in your favor, we hope they are, won't that then set precedent of how the others should be decided, and pretty soon the appeals courts start deciding in your favor? It never need go to the Supreme Court.
That's correct. In fact, it may never even have to go back to court anywhere again because, for example, if we take out New York City's, virtual ban on getting permits to carry firearms for self-protection, or get rid of New Jersey's law like that, it would also get rid of other states at the same time, because the U.S. Supreme Court says that, the so-called may issue laws or showing good cause or good need or ridiculous costs and requirements to be able to get a permit to protect yourself and your family are unconstitutional. It means all those other laws are going to get struck down at the same time. So, we might be putting ourselves out of business, so to speak, with some very great legal successes in the next year or two, and it'd be fine with me.
We're getting lots of comments in on social media, and I'm going to address a few of these. Mark Chessman would like you to talk a little bit more about the New Jersey case, if you would.
Well, Mark's very familiar with the laws in New Jersey, having litigated himself there. And, of course, the appeals court has basically said that New Jersey's law, the Second Amendment, doesn't take out New Jersey's law as being unconstitutional. In New Jersey, I think it's the only state that in order to get a concealed permit to carry a firearm for self-protection, not only do you have to have local law enforcement say approve it, but you have to have a judge approve it as well. And it's just a ridiculous system in New Jersey, population-wise, they give out very, very few permits to anybody. And it's just, the average law-abiding citizen in the state of New Jersey does not have the Second Amendment rights outside his front door, basically. And so we're going to try and change that. And, of course, Mark himself has been a groundbreaker in this area and pushy for this kind of stuff. And we hope to expand upon that, and we're kind of excited about it.
Okay. Next one that I see on social media, Hugh Payne says, I would like to know how you can expect an 18 to 21-year-old to fight and defend the freedoms that this country offers and not be eligible for them. I think that's an easy one to agree with.
Yeah, obviously I agree with that. I find it appalling that we send young adult Americans into battle where they can have firearms to defend our country with, but they come home and they can't have one to defend themselves or their families with. I find it appalling, and we've been fighting for this for a long time, and there have been a couple of cases that have been filed that have been lost, and our one filed in Louisiana is really important because in the Fifth Circuit, Texas and Louisiana and the Fifth Circuit, the NRA had filed a suit that they lost in Texas on 18-year-olds being able to purchase firearms. And so the Fifth Circuit now, thanks to President Trump, has really flipped, and more judges there support us than oppose us. And we're hoping to get an en banc panel at the Fifth Circuit. That one may not make it to the Supreme Court because it's very possible the en banc panel may give us a victory in the Fifth Circuit, and the government may not appeal that one because it's a federal law that's being challenged. So we have some other we have an 20-year-old one in Pennsylvania as well against a state law that one may make it all the way to the Supreme Court. We're trying these in various different jurisdictions, and it really would be nice to give young Americans the same kind of rights and freedoms under the Constitution that the rest of us enjoy.
All right, last one, because we're already at 15 minutes, and I told you I'd let you go at 15 minutes, but I've got one more that is really pertinent, And this is kind of a softball for you. Ashley Knight asks, Biden and Harris are anti-guns. What can we do to protect our rights?
Well, the most important thing right now is to make sure the United States Senate is not in their party's control. And so the special elections coming up, runoffs in Georgia for 2 United States Senate seats are extremely important. So anything we can do to help out our brothers and sisters in Georgia to elect 2 United States senators that will support gun rights is critical. If you don't live in Georgia, it doesn't mean you still can't donate to their campaigns. It doesn't mean that you can't contact their campaigns and get call lists and from your own cell phone, wherever you are in the country, call registered voters in Georgia to help turn out the vote, to make sure that, particularly gun owners are very engaged in Georgia to protect our rights. So that's the most immediate thing that we can do. Then we're going to have to see where the cards lay, to what the next plan is going to be. But there's no doubt that the Biden-Harris administration is going to do everything they can by executive order to infringe on our gun rights.
Well, very cool. Alan, I told you I was going to keep you for 15 minutes. We're almost at 17. I want to thank you for joining us on this very first broadcast of the Weekly Bullet.
My pleasure, and thank you, all of you panelists as well, for everything you're doing to protect our Second Amendment rights and help reach more and more Americans with important information about what's going on about our 2A rights. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, we're going to go ahead and switch over to this screen, and I want to, as we begin the rest of the show, we're going to be going for about another 44 minutes. I want to ask everybody, if you are watching and you want you want to comment, you want to be involved in the show, please just comment on either the Facebook or the YouTube video. Facebook, the one is the one on the Second Amendment Foundation's site. Also, if you're on Twitter and you happen to be catching us live, you can comment with you can send a tweet with the hashtag PS Podcast. We'll get that and we'll put that on the air as well. So, gentlemen, we've got 45 minutes to talk about news. The one thing that I want to, and let's continue this a little bit, is, man, lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit by the SAF. Awesome news, and more to come if you maybe a lot more to come from the SAF.
You want to talk about chess at levels I barely understand. We have a pretty good case, let's say, to say that 18 to 21-year-olds have been denied their rights and deserve them. And we want to bring that, we're bringing it up in a district where perhaps the state attorney general might, even though it's a federal law, the local state attorney general might side with us. And then we are in the odd case of going, do we hope we win that or lose it? Because if we lose it, then we can perhaps go directly to the Supreme Court and have a nationwide precedent established. Wow.
Kevin, your thoughts?
God chose me to make me good instead of a lawyer. So the work that Alan, is just, really, gun owners in America really can't thank him and the Second Amendment Foundation enough. Right. I first met Alan in 2009 at the NRA convention, where I got to meet Dick Heller as well. There was a blogger get together there, and it's really, ever since then I've been following their work with such great enthusiasm. We owe, like I say, we owe so much. We really do. The current gun rights environment that we celebrate right now is due in large part to the Second Amendment Foundation. I think it's interesting also that he mentioned the sea change that happened in the Fifth Circuit now that there's been new judges appointed there. I mean, I lived in Arizona for a long time, and that was the Ninth Circuit, and the Ninth Circuit is, more than just a few fries short of a Happy Meal. They're missing the toy and the cheeseburger as well. So getting that flipped and getting that moving more towards a view of personal liberty and personal protection. I mean, the sky's the limit. We've got Mitch, the Republican leadership in the Senate to thank. We've got Harry Reid to thank, quite honestly, as well for this.
Right.
So there's such great opportunities here. It's really, I mean, I think we're focused on what the potential bad outcome might be over the course of the next few weeks up until December 12th when the election is called. And, that's fine. It might be a little bit more trying over the next couple of years than it would be if it goes the other way. We don't know right now. But the good thing to know is that at least on the legal challenge, on the legal front, we've got the wind in our backs.
Isn't the Ninth Circuit now pretty much a split? What we wonder is if do they call it the president or the Chief Justice of the Ninth Circuit? I think he always sits on an appeal, and we might see a lot of single vote decisions.
Yeah, and there's so much coming down the pipe. Like I say, 23 different lawsuits in 1 year, 24. Good grief!
And add to that the Young decision that I don't know that the SAF is arguing that directly. Right, that's the Ninth Circuit. The question about Hawaii's refusal, just like New Jersey or similar to New Jersey, Hawaii's refusal to grant concealed carry permits. In Hawaii, carry of any kind, concealed or open. Where do we want to go next?
Well, one thing I want to bring up is we are we're an easy week and a half out from the election. And guys, I don't know what you guys think, but I think it's still far from decided, but it's leaning more towards, it's looking like we're going to have an anti-gun administration here at the end of January.
I'd like to say no. I'd like to say no. But we're seeing, it's not that there isn't a lot of options available right now for the Trump administration. It's just that we're seeing those doors starting to close. Now, one of them could still be open and still pave the way. That's fine. But, it's just not really seeing a lot of, and I'm still hoping those work. So don't get me wrong. I think we need to look at realistically what can and cannot be done if, God forbid, the worst happens and we end up with a Biden-Harris administration. A lot of the things on the Democrats' webpage regarding gun control, there's a big wish list there. Putting standard capacity magazines on the NFA list. I'm like, under what heading would that go? Because it ain't a firearm. So they're going to have to create this own new separate thing in that law that's not a firearm that covers magazines. Well, good luck with that. That's going to be that's not just a rule change, that's a new law. And, Alan and basically every other firearms right lawyers in America is just salivating at the thought of getting hold of that one. We're looking at possibly elimination of the Protection of Legal Commerce and Arms Act. Mm-hmm. And that's a big one. That's reason to hold on to the Senate right there. We're looking at possibly the bump stocks. Bump stocks, they're gone. But maybe pistol braces added on to the NFA. How many pistol braces do you have? Multiply that by 200. That's how much you'll have to pay.
Isn't that and what's shocking to me is that's never been ruled a takings.
Been ruled a what?
A taking, where the federal government says, this is a legal product. You buy it years later, in some cases decades later. The federal government, under a different administration, reverses their point of view. And the arguments that I've seen are tenuous, vacuous perhaps. And then, that legal product you had has to either be turned in or destroyed, for which we'll offer you nothing. Wait a minute, you're seizing my property. If we're going to talk about the election, I think we have to talk about the shocking and embarrassing level of fraud we've seen. It's widespread. It's varied, meaning it runs everything from refusal to deliver Republican campaign mailers postal employees being told to trash those, to the refusal to deliver military mail that included write-in ballots. That's almost the only way most of the military can vote, to the systematic abuses that we've seen on a corrupt, and one might almost say nefarious, software program that switches votes from one candidate to another. That program seemed to be connected to the internet, so literally it knew how far to cheat. I thought we were trying to make every vote count, rather than, I didn't know that it was my job as a voter to simply get tallies that were within the margin of fraud. That is a huge issue. It taints both candidates. It taints every race, not just the presidential race.
Yeah, it's certainly, long before the, actually about a couple weeks before the election, I wrote a piece for another website talking about, can the Democrats survive a Trump win? If that still happens, that's a very good question to ask. One of the things I said was, we're basically looking at one of three scenarios for the election this year. We're looking at a Trump win, where it's outside of the range of as the online commenter or the radio host Hugh Hewitt says, if it's not close, they can't cheat enough to win. We're looking at a situation perhaps like with the Kavanaugh hearings, where you had the one party go so all into defeating this horrible person that they saw, that they were willing to throw out the concept of innocent before guilty in order to defeat him from getting a seat on the court. And a lot of people who may not have been necessarily strong supporters of Kavanaugh or President Trump who elected, a lot of people said, stop, wait a minute. We're willing to throw out one of the fundamental principles of the American justice system, that people are considered innocent until they're proven guilty. We're willing to do this in order to stop Kavanaugh. I'm not willing. Susan Collins basically said that. That's why she voted against or voted for Kavanaugh. I'm not willing to throw out that principle in order to, stop this nomination. And I think we're seeing that here as well. I think we're seeing a lot of people saying, "Whoa, stop! How much?" Okay, I understand that people are going to work the refs and people are going to game the system and all that stuff, but how much of it are we willing to put up with in order? Is it on this much of a scale? What are we losing here? What is our end game here? If fraud is going to go on, and it's going to go on to this extent, this is very troubling to a whole lot of people, and not just Trump supporters, not just the 79 million people. There's a lot of people looking at this process going, well, this is messed up. We need to change this, and we need to ensure integrity from the minute you walk into the polling booth until December the 12th, when the electors are chosen.
Kevin, your point can't be underscored enough, because imagine you're a Democrat and you vote for one of the candidates, except the candidate that you like is not the official establishment. And these days, would we have to say progressive, since they seem to have taken over the Democrat establishment? You want a conservative Democrat, or a more liberal Democrat, or just a different progressive than the establishment progressive. And suddenly your vote doesn't count either. We've seen vote totals in various states get moved around by millions. Wow. We are replaying the communist dictum that it's not who votes that matters, but who counts the votes. It reminds me of the Iranian elections. I'm embarrassed to say we're still seeing it here. If there was a casualty, and as Kevin, you pointed out, A wins, B wins, or we've corrupted the system to the point that both sides can claim that there is no confidence in the results of the election, regardless of how it's finally awarded.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we should look at what the outcomes are going to be for the American gun owner. I mean, that's basically what matters to a lot of people here. We're looking at one of three scenarios. We're looking at a pretty, how should I put this? A Biden win that establishes fairly well. Okay, yes, there was some fraud, and it was terrible, but it was a Biden win. We're looking at a Trump win that is done through the courts and through the establishment of voter fraud or some other, circumstances which would cause the election, to basically swing the other direction. So, what would be the scenarios for the American gun owner in both? What would the American gun owner have to live through in both of those scenarios? What are you guys' thoughts on that?
Rob, I'm.
Well, if we retain the Senate, and again, I have to ask, were the votes in Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Georgia, were those honest? Are the tallies that we're seeing for the Senate candidates reliable, or were they as twisted as what we saw for Donald Trump? Remember, there were, what was it? In some cases in Arizona, was it how many 100,000 votes were submitted that were only for Joe Biden?
Yeah.
They just appeared, right? Hi, Biden only. No other candidate on the ticket. You're all, wow, that's bizarre. That doesn't happen. People don't vote that way. And so it smells of fraud so badly. Even if the House and Senate go Democrat and we retain Trump, we retain our rights. That veto is tremendously powerful. If we have the Senate and Biden is the president, it's more difficult. That forces Biden to act by, I was going to say executive fiat, we'll call it presidential directive. If they take all three houses, both houses and the executive branch, then they can twist the rules any way they want. Remember, they also have the media, so they can say, oh, I understand about the judges, but we just think there need to be more of them, so we'll pack the Supreme Court, the appellate court, and the district courts, and no one will stop them. So it could get really bad. What do you think, Kevin?
I think it might. One of the things about court packing is that polling on it is terrible, like 70, 80% against it.
Yeah.
And you're looking at a lot of people, one of the things that happened this year was, yes, the Trump coattails were actually rather strong. You had a lot of people in down ticket races, maybe not necessarily the Georgia Senate race, but Joni Ernst, she was supposed to lose. She won. A lot of House seats flipped over to the point where the Democrats have a very tenuous hold on the House. If a couple of center-leaning Democrats decide to jump ship, they're tired of necessarily an anti-gun, all the anti-gun rhetoric. They remember what happened in 1994, and they don't want to replay. To quote a line from, I think it was what movie was it? It was Clear and Present Danger. The president's national security advisor is talking to our hero Jack Ryan. He says, "What does this administration want? It wants what every administration wants: a second term." Mm-hmm. And that's going to be the driving force between a Biden-Harris administration. They're going to want to get reelected, and they're going to look at it. Yeah.
Kevin, we've got the Speaker of the House and her assistants driving a corrupt software counting, a corrupt company that provides corrupt, in fact, manipulating vote tallying software. And because of the media bias, that's not being screamed day in and day out, 24/7. My God, talk about corrupting the system. When they say they wanted a second term, I didn't think they were going to go steal it from us.
Well, like I say, I think there's going to be an opportunity. You were going to say something, Paul.
Go ahead, because I'm gonna switch gears after we're done with this.
I think you're going to, like I say, with the Kavanaugh thing, I think there's a tidal wave of awareness going on, an undercurrent of people saying, we're willing to put up with a little bit of under-the-table stuff. We understand that people are human and, they're going to work the system. But I'm not willing to have the system get gamed to this extent. I really think we're seeing that, especially among Republicans. And let's face it, that's 49% of the electorate out there, right? Or at least, more or less. Who was it? It was, I read somewhere that we're a 49% nation. We're just, the center is getting shrunk and shrunk and shrunk and shrunk. So if you can switch 10,000, 100,000, a million people and say, you know what, this election was stolen, you're going to switch the narrative.
Amen. I want to get to, Rob, if I could, real quick. We can come back to this, but I want to get this in because I really think we've got some social media comments that I really think I want to get in right now. First one, Jim West, put me on the team. I like this. Very informative. And humor is great, which is cool. And then just a few minutes later, we get this one, which is from Barrett Creech. Are you guys actually going to talk about guns or a bunch of crazily baseless right-wing conspiracies? And so I think we're doing it right, guys. We're getting yay and we're getting you're nuts. So I think we're kind of we're getting we're doing it right, is I guess what I'm trying to say. And specifically to Barrett, I'm going to go ahead and bring my camera up so I can look right at you, and I can address you right face to face, Barrett. I hope you're still watching. You made your comment 4 minutes ago. This is the Second Amendment Foundation's weekly bullet. You don't see a whole lot of the newest Barrett rifle on the Second Amendment Foundation's feed. You don't see a whole lot of this is the newest from Smith & Wesson, or the 6.5 Creedmoor did this, or the Second Amendment Foundation's primary goal is to protect and defend our rights. That's what this show is about. I hope you stay around. These are not just right-wing conspiracy theories. This is what's really happening in America. So I'm gonna go ahead and bring this back. I'm sorry for going on a little bit of a tirade, you guys, but that one kind of set me off.
So, being offended by electoral corruption is now a right-wing problem. I thought, wasn't that the mantra that I heard for the previous 4 years, though?
Well, I'm just saying, I'm looking for, to people said, all right, we had to suck it up 4 years ago. Now it's your turn, Republicans. And my response is, oh, great. That means we get to impeach the president in 3 years. So let's
no, it's for 3 years, not in 3 years.
Yes,
exactly. I am willing to talk about how Russia stole this election, and foreign documents and stuff like that. If you guys want to play that game, I'm willing to do that. Personally, I prefer the game go away. It's a boring game against that. Right. But I think one of the biggest things, one of the things that we really need to look at here is the influences of tech. And you're talking about the Dominion and stuff like that. The influence of Twitter, censoring the President of the United States tweets.
Right.
How many people we know who are in the firearms industry who have had their pages just disappear? Just go away. Their Instagram accounts get locked out. I got locked out. I've been locked out so many times. I got locked out for posting a link to ammoman.com plug, and adding a $sign. That was that. They said I was trying to sell ammunition, and Facebook locked me out for a week. Just crazy, insane stuff like this. Rob, I don't know if you were there at the NRA in 2009, but at the convention there was the Christian Science Monitor came over to do an article on gun bloggers. And they talked about how gun bloggers just stomp the gun control world flat online, metaphorically speaking, because we're not into violence, of course. But, it's true. In 2009, the blog community was so rich and so multifaceted and so alive and so vibrant. We could move the needle. Give a good example. 2007, right after I first started blogging, Era USA did a gun blogger weekend thing where they brought in 10 gun bloggers, people we all know, Tamara Keel, Caleb Giddings, my friend Kevin Baker, some great bloggers. 10 of them to get trained on Para USA pistols by Todd Jarrett. Wow, what a great thing! I was just a nobody back then, so I wasn't even in the running. Well, here's the thing. I found an old post about that in somebody's blog, and out of those 10 people, half of them no longer blog anymore. And 2 or 3 of them might be blogging, but they'll be blogging, about personal stuff and stuff like that. Gun blogs have gone away. We've outsourced our spreading of information about firearms and the Second Amendment to Facebook, to Twitter, and to all these different platforms, where we've let them control what we talk about. Now, first off, that I don't really see how that's compatible with the idea of personal responsibility and personal safety. To me, if we've got a platform that we can use ourselves, talking about Defense Distributed and making guns yourself, you can make your own WordPress blog on WordPress.com. It's not hard. You can buy a domain name, hosting, download WordPress, build a theme. It takes you at most 8 hours to do that, and that's for people who don't know what they're doing. And if you even don't know what you're doing, you can go to Fiverr and have somebody spend $30 for you to do it for you. It's not hard to do. We need to take back the digital high ground. We need to get out there, start building our own blogs, get back involved in forums, start moving our conversation, not necessarily onto MeWe or Parler. Those are both good, nothing wrong with those, because they do respect freedom and First Amendment rights. But more than that, start bringing back the idea of, if we're going to bring back the idea of personal defense and me taking responsibility for my personal defense, we also need to take back the idea of me taking responsible for communicating my passion for the Second Amendment.
Yeah, I want to go on a little side trip to that one. When I got my current job on November 1st, I immediately, when I very first started doing the Polite Society podcast, back then it was the Politics and Guns podcast, I had my browser filled with bookmarks from gun blogs and podcasts. And YouTube wasn't really a big thing at the time then. This was in 2000. And let's see, I started in 2012. And so, but I was really packed with stuff. And I went back when I started the current job going, I need to start keeping up with these people again. And a good 2/3 of my links were either the last post was 2 years ago, or totally dead, or had been absorbed by another blog, and they're not really posting gun stuff anymore. What I have noticed is everybody is now posting to YouTube, and there are a lot of new podcasts. So do you think maybe that people are going from writing to either audio or visual?
I think there's definitely an element of that. The problem, though, when you go to YouTube is you've just went from one poison well to another poison well. Mm-hmm. Ask how many people who have gotten their YouTube channels demonetized because they showed a gun.
Right.
Good friend of mine, people who run big podcasts or big YouTube channels, used to make their living doing YouTube channels. All of a sudden, they're out of a job because now they have to find an alternative. Now, we're good at this. We find sponsorships and paid promotions and stuff like that to make up for that. And podcasts will work as well, But again, you're relying on somebody else to be that gatekeeper for you. If your podcast isn't in iTunes now, to their credit, iTunes is good on podcasts currently. They will let you post a podcast just about anything, and I don't see that going away, quite frankly. Spotify, I don't know. There's other options out there. Ricochet.com is a very good open. They don't really have any gun podcasts, but they definitely do have a lot of politics stuff like that. So yeah, I think I know a lot of gun bloggers out there who just stopped, and I'm like, if you want to change the world, change the world. Get involved in it yourself. Start writing about what matters to you. If you want to be part of this wave that's moving, start paddling. Don't just rely on the wave to carry you.
I need to get to one more. Or go ahead, Robin. I'll get to this as soon as you're done.
Kevin, you're right. I'm reminded of a number of people who recently entered the firearms community. Rather than start a blog, well, they may have done that, but they went to YouTube. They went to a podcast because I listen to podcasts because I can listen while I drive or while I work, if I'm around the house doing something, which they can't do to a blog. They can't read it please don't read as you drive, that's scary. But the disadvantage to those other media is it's not searchable. They tend not to have the long-term persistence of the written word. We know how to archive the written word and make it searchable. We're still learning how to do that with video blogs and podcasts.
Very much.
I mean, if you can go get Kevin's stuff from years ago, find the article you want. Harder to do if it's.
Yeah, and that's very true, and that's one of the frustrations I ran into when I first started this job with Appleman. The same thing with you, Paul. I ran into. It's like, okay, great. There's another ammo company out there that 5-6 years ago when they first started, they did a big gun blogger event out in Kentucky, and they rented Knob Creek Range. They brought in Tom Gibbons. They brought in all kinds of fully automatic firearms. You could sit there and shoot using their ammunition. I mean, good grief, that was just heaven on earth. And you had things like, the Gun Blogger Rendezvous out in Nevada and stuff like that. There are still, remnants and good remnants of this remaining, where you see things like the Gun Blog Blacklist, which is a list of gun blogs out there. Definitely make that part of your everyday read. When you're sitting down, in the morning with your morning coffee before you get out to work, rather than opening up Facebook, open up the Gun Blog Blacklist. Learn a lot of stuff. Plug for another blogger, Greg Ellifritz's active response training. His weekend knowledge dumps are terrific. They really are. They're every week. And I'm not just saying this because I got 2 articles in this week's edition. Stuff like that. There is stuff out there, but get involved in something. A prime example of this, I'll give you this. I'm involved in a local Facebook community near me, in my community around guns. And what it is 9/10 of the time is somebody decides to post memes out there. Like, hey, here's this meme about somebody, acting silly about guns. I'm like, well, that's great. But at the end of the day, what good did that do you? The fact of the matter is here, and here's the thing. 2010, I went to Write Online, and I got to hear a comedian named Steven Cruiser talk. And the question was, how do we get people involved in personal liberty and taking responsibility for making governments less intrusive in our lives? And Steven Cruiser's response was very simple, very erudite, and also really tough to do. He said, all we need to do to win is take people to the range. Because once they get a firearm in their hand, they see how much fun this is. And they see how, it's not a scary thing. And they begin to realize that they're in charge of their own personal self-protection. Once we get people to the range, we win. He said this great line, and I've borrowed it and I've used it forever and ever. Here's the fact of the matter. Firearms are the gateway drug to freedom. And if we want to make a difference in a post-Biden, in a post-election world, no matter if Biden wins or if Trump wins or if, what's her name, the Libertarian candidate all of a sudden finds 65 million votes in a van somewhere, doesn't matter who did. Okay? If we want to win in a post-election environment, we need to take people out to the range. We need to get, your neighbors. Like, I was thinking about that. I've taken so many people out to the range in the past 6 months. Just, hey, here's a 22 with a red dot. There's a piece of steel 10 yards away. Put the dot on the steel, pull the trigger, bing. Best fun they've ever had in their lives. Just get people out shooting.
The difficult.
I wonder what happened to them I wonder what happened to the 7 million new gun owners at the ballot box.
I don't think they made the connection between Y and X equals Y yet. I know a couple of those people, and they just don't understand. that there's, you know, I'm going to relate it here to something, you know, that there's the portion of the how you vote that you think is actually going to happen, and there's a portion of how you vote that actually turns out to happen. They just haven't made the connection that one of the parties is really just not a big fan of private gun ownership. They really haven't dug into that. They say, well, you know, I support the Second Amendment, but, and it's that damning but there that, here's why the rest of my argument is why I really actually don't support the Second Amendment. And I think, you know, once you understand that it's not the Second Amendment isn't like a buffet table where you get to say, yes, well, I'm going to choose the hunting rifle and the sporting clays, but I'm not going to, you know, indulge in AR-15s. That's not the way it works. Sorry, the Second Amendment is a Happy Meal in a bag. You get it all.
I really need. Well, first of all, I want one more comment on what you were just talking about, Kevin, and then we need to get to some social media comments because I'm going to unload on one again. I might even let Kevin do it because we'll find out why in a second. But the only thing about taking people to the range, and I agree, that's the best way to turn people to our side is to get people to the range. That also requires you to be polite and have friends in person.
Yes.
And that's the hard part, is to be friendly with your neighbor, to be a good person, to be the kind of person another person wants to hang out with.
Right.
That's
yeah. And yelling at the sky, going, "My rights!" Nobody, you know. I'm sorry. Nobody. I'm going to say something fairly controversial. Nobody cares about your rights. Nobody. They care about their rights. So, the more you make your rights their rights, the faster you win.
Amen to that. We do need to get to some social media comments here. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to let Kevin have at because I don't think this guy knows what Kevin's all about. Mike Richard says, the top right guy looks a little soft. I don't believe he could handle the recoil from a real gun.
Oh, okay.
Is this somebody you know, Kevin, that's jerking your chain?
I don't know, but I could open up the safe here and I could, pull out one of my 45s. Would that work? Although I probably shouldn't shoot it on camera. That would probably be, break at least the rules. I am. Yes, you're right. The person on here is a little soft. He's an old fat white guy who likes hot fudge sundaes too much. I will totally admit to that. Thank you very much. I appreciate that comment.
But Kevin, I want you to explain what your job is because obviously these people, the people making comments like that, you work for Ammo Man, and your job. And I'm jealous. I've got a damn good job myself, but you get paid to go out and play with the good stuff.
I do. If I wasn't me, I'd want to be. The fact of the matter is, at AmmoMan.com, we started the School of Guns blog, basically to help people along their journey. There's a lot of people who don't understand in the firearms industry. And they're great people, and I love them dearly, but they talk about firearms at a 301 or a 401 or a post-grad level, where they talk about, here's these 14 drills you can use to decrease your split times in between targets by 0.2 seconds. And that's great, and those are drills that I enjoy shooting, but the fact of the matter is, for most people, guns are fun. Guns are a great way just to go out with some friends into the backyard, into a local range, punch holes in some paper, or knock a tin can around, put your gun away, and leave. They don't think about each range session from session to session. They don't think about how they can get to be a better shooter. They just treat guns as just a fun time with friends, and that's fine because guns actually are fun. However, my goal at Ammo Man is pretty simple. I want to make guns fun, but I want to help people actually hit their target, which is even more fun. I go back to a sport that I also enjoy playing, and I shouldn't say this on a gun because it's for some reason people don't like the word golf mentioned. They say the word, golf is just a waste of a good rifle range. Well, here's the fact is, the mental state for golf, where you've got to use your mind to go through and make the shot, is very, very similar to the mental state for making a shot on a rifle. I saw that comment. Thanks, Jim. I appreciate that. So getting people, when you go out and play golf, it's fun. It really is. When you go out and play golf and make a 100-yard chip shot over water and drop it within a foot of the pole, holy cow, is that fun. And it's the same thing with guns. When you go out and shoot holes in the target, that's fun. When you get all your groups in a nice little cluster in the center of the target, holy cow, is that fun.
Just did that last night.
The sooner you make that fun accessible to new gun owners, the better you cement them into the gun culture. I agree.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We've got a couple more, and we're coming up on the end of the show here in about 4 minutes. So Dr. John Dean says, soapbox, ballot box, ammo box, what do we have left? What will be left in a few years if Biden gets inaugurated? And then Paul, and I cannot pronounce your last name, Paul. I'm sorry. But he says, when these people found out they've been lied to about how easy it is to get a gun, if they still voted for Biden, you can't fix stupid. And so those two are ones I absolutely wanted to get on the air.
Okay, there was also one there where a guy goes, what don't they understand about shall not be infringed? Again, Kevin, you answered that. It's words to them.
Yeah,
they don't see it as their words, as Kevin said.
It is. You've got to make it personal. You've got to make it understand that it isn't just something for gun nuts that we're talking about here. We're talking about the fact, and people are starting to realize this, especially after after all the incidences all over the country here with riots and stuff like that. You call up the phone, you call 911, and you're put on hold for 2.5 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now what? How many people, my personal journey in the firearms industry started because I realized that if a home invasion, I was living in Phoenix at the time, and there was a lot of problem with the coyotes and the drug smuggling and the human smuggling going on there. If one of that happened to me, we'd be out of luck. The police would show up 20 minutes later and draw a chalk outline around my body. That's not exactly the most comforting thought that's out there. So I said, we've got to do something about this. My wife said, I want an alarm. I said, that's a great idea. I want a gun. And then here I am 10, 15 years later on a podcast talking about guns.
Raven Wolf on Facebook just sent, you can shoot a golf ball 300 yards. I can shoot a golf ball at 300 yards.
Speaking of gun bloggers, we've got a gun blogger range day coming up. One of the first, in 6-7 years, I think. And I'm looking forward to. I'm going to bring out my precision rifle to that shoot.
Isn't that the one in Florida, in South Florida?
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be great.
Looking forward to that. Those were always fun.
To answer Dr. John's question, all of those boxes will be used now more than ever. If we think that the vote was corrupt, there will be a backlash. That will affect every part of the ticket. You can't steal a national election and then expect that people at the local level will say, oh, well, I bet that party's corrupt down here in my town. Probably not. We would see, I think, a sweep from the bottom up, unless the establishment is that brutal that they basically suppress the votes at every level of government. To amplify the other point, there will be more blogs. What will happen in a Biden administration? We'll use the soapbox. Conservative blogs will explode, particularly since that point of view is not welcome in the mainstream media. I think I just addressed the ballot box, cartridge box. Well, it is going to be hard to get ammunition no matter what. A Biden administration will not make the ammo shortage. If you wanted to see ammo prices drop, pray for a Trump victory.
And give it some time.
Yeah.
Yeah, 6 months to a year.
All right, guys.
I was talking to my... Well...
We are up against the hour, guys. We're going to have to set this one aside. So what I want to do is we're going to go the reverse order is where we started. Rob, I'm going to bring you up first. I want you to let everybody know who you are, where your stuff is at, and how they can find you.
I'll take it in the other order of that, too. You can find me on Self-Defense Gun Stories. That's a little snack food of a podcast. I get to, once a week, be with Paul on the Polite Society podcast. That's an ensemble. Runs about 90 minutes. I blog at slowfacts.wordpress.com. I get to be on a radio program once a week with Bill Frady. And now I'm writing for AmmoLand, the Self-Defense Gun Stories and Armed Citizen blogs.
All right, Kevin, let everybody know where you write at, what you do, and where your stuff can be found.
Well, I write for Ammo Man, not Ammo. That's been confused more than once, I've got to be honest. AmmoMan.com.
Sorry, partner.
Orders over $100 ship free when we have ammo in stock.
And anyway, they ship fast. So, yeah. I can attest to they ship fast.
Yeah, we're like that. I write the School of Guns blog there. You can also find me on YouTube, and we just expanded to Parler and MeWe as well, doing stuff on there, and our Facebook presence as well. Like I say, if we get a new shipment every day, so visit often.
Very cool. And then I guess that kind of leaves me. I'm Paul Lathrop.
The guy in the hat.
Yeah, I'm the guy in the hat. I'm the deputy director of digital. I got to get this right. It's a new job. I'm sorry. I'm the deputy director of new media at the Second Amendment Foundation. We produce the Polite Society podcast every Monday. We're going to be doing this podcast every Friday. And then we have the Daily Bullet, which is a pre-recorded interview with people who are making a difference in our gun rights. And that happens every Monday through Friday. You can catch me anywhere you can catch the SAF, on Facebook, on YouTube, anywhere that SAF has a presence. I have a presence. Plus, you can get me personally both at Parler and at MeWe. Well, we're going to go ahead and we're going to wrap this first episode up. Rob and Kevin, I want to thank you both so much for really carrying some pretty heavy water for me while we got this first one in the books.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Paul.
You're very welcome. We're going to go ahead and shut this one down, folks. Join us next Friday afternoon, and